Dr. Lisa Morgan rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. The numbers couldn't be right. She had checked them 5 times already, but they still showed the same thing. Stars were getting dimmer. Not just 1 or 2 stars, but all of them. She grabbed her coffee cup, found it empty, and sighed. The Mauna Kea Observatory's break room was just down the hall, but she couldn't bring herself to leave her desk. Not with readings like these. "Hey Rob, can you come look at this?" She called out to Robert Hayes, who was working at another computer station. Rob had been her colleague for 6 years, and if anyone could spot what she was missing, it would be him. Rob rolled his chair over, his usual cheerful face turning serious as he looked at the data. "That can't be right," he muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard as he pulled up more information. "The magnitude readings are all off." "That's what I thought too," Lisa said, pointing to the graphs on her screen. "But look at the pattern. It's not equipment failure. The stars are actually getting fainter, all of them." At the same time, Rob frowned and pushed his glasses up his nose. "Let me check the other telescopes." He quickly connected to the observatory's network, pulling up data from their other instruments. His frown deepened. Same readings everywhere. Even the radio telescopes are picking up decreased signals. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "We need to call Dr. Wilson." 20 minutes later, the observatory's director was standing behind them, his face pale as he looked at the mounting evidence. More readings were coming in from observatories around the world. The universe was growing darker, and nobody knew why. "Send out the alert," Dr. Wilson said quietly. "Priority 1. I'll call the International Astronomical Union." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. News channels picked up the story, and soon the whole world knew that something strange was happening in the night sky. Amateur astronomers confirmed what the professionals were seeing. The stars were fading away. Lisa barely slept, spending every moment she could gathering data. She started keeping a video diary, recording her observations and thoughts. Day 5 of the dimming. She spoke into her laptop's camera. "We've confirmed that the effect is uniform across all observed celestial bodies. Stars, galaxies, even nebula. Everything is getting fainter at the same rate. It's as if..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's as if the universe is pulling away from us." The initial public reaction was a mix of fear, disbelief, and fascination. Social media exploded with theories ranging from scientific to supernatural. Religious leaders called for prayer, scientists called for calm, and governments tried to maintain order. On day 10, Lisa made another disturbing discovery. She burst into the main control room, where Rob was monitoring the telescopes. "The rate is increasing," she said, spreading printouts across his desk. "The dimming is accelerating. Look at these numbers from the last 24 hours. Rob studied the data, his face growing more concerned. "If this continues at the current rate, in 3 months, we'll lose sight of 60% of the visible universe." Lisa finished his thought. That evening, as Lisa drove home from the observatory, she noticed something that made her pull over to the side of the road. Getting out of her car, she looked up at the night sky. The familiar constellations she had grown up with, the ones that had inspired her to become an astronomer, were noticeably fainter. Orion's belt, usually so bright and clear, was now barely visible. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rob. "Check your email. Reports coming in about navigation systems acting weird. Navy ships reporting compass problems." Lisa felt that same chill she'd experienced when she first noticed the dimming. This wasn't just about light anymore. Something fundamental was changing in the universe, and Earth was at the center of it. As she got back in her car, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Dr. Wilson. "Emergency meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. Bring all your data. Department of Defense representatives will be there." Lisa looked up at the fading stars one more time before starting her car. Whatever was happening, she had a feeling humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. The universe was withdrawing, but they weren't going to let it go without a fight. She didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. The void was coming, and only humanity's inherent spark would stand between Earth and the growing darkness. 3 months had passed since Dr. Lisa Morgan first noticed the stars dimming. She stood at the window of her apartment, looking at what remained of the night sky, where thousands of stars once shone. Now only a few hundred twinkled weakly. The moon looked pale and distant, more like a fading photograph than the bright companion Earth had known for billions of years. Her phone rang. It was Captain David Wright from the Navy's Pacific Fleet. "Dr. Morgan, we've lost another ship," he said, his voice tight with worry. "Not lost as in sunk. Lost as in we can't find it. All our navigation equipment is going crazy. GPS, compasses, even the old sextants aren't working right." Lisa rubbed her temples. "How many ships is that now?" "5 in the last week. We got them all back, but it's getting worse. The pilots say it's like reality gets thin in some places. They sail into these patches where their instruments stop working, and the sky looks wrong." Before Lisa could respond, her laptop chimed with an incoming video call. It was Angela Peters, the quantum physicist who had been studying the phenomenon. "I have to go, Captain. Keep your ships in sight of land for now," Lisa said, then answered Angela's call. Angela's face appeared on screen, her usually neat hair messy as if she'd been running her hands through it for hours. "Lisa, you need to see this." She held up a tablet showing a series of complex equations. "It's not just the light that's fading. Space itself is warping around Earth." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked, though she felt she already knew the answer. "Remember those patches the Navy reported? They're what I'm calling void zones, areas where the basic rules of physics start breaking down. It's like, imagine reality as a piece of fabric, and something is pulling at it from the other side." Lisa walked to her desk and pulled up the latest satellite data. The pictures showed dark patches in the upper atmosphere, areas where the cameras couldn't seem to focus properly. Her phone buzzed again. A news alert. Global temperatures had dropped another degree. With less solar radiation reaching Earth, the world was getting colder. Farmers were reporting failed crops, and energy companies were struggling to meet the increased demand for heating. The next morning, Lisa joined a video conference with scientists from around the world. Dr. William Carter, head of the newly formed International Space Preservation Initiative, ISPI, led the discussion. "The void zones are spreading," he said, showing a map covered in black dots. "We've lost contact with our Mars colonies and the outer solar system. Well, we can't even detect it anymore. It's as if everything beyond Mars has ceased to exist." One of the scientists spoke up, his voice shaking. 3 of my lab assistants walked into a void zone yesterday. They came back after 10 minutes. But they were different. They said they saw things in there. Impossible things. They haven't stopped shaking since. Lisa thought about the samples she'd collected from near a void zone. The air itself seemed different there, as if it had forgotten how to be air. Even light behaved strangely, bending in ways that defied physics. That evening, as Lisa drove to the observatory, she had to stop at a new military checkpoint. The government had started restricting access to areas near known void zones. Through her car window, she could see soldiers setting up strange-looking equipment. Devices designed to detect when reality started growing thin. At the observatory, Rob was waiting with new data. "The moon," he said simply, pointing to his screen. "It's starting to show the same effects we saw before losing Mars. Like it's trying to fade away." Lisa looked through the telescope at Earth's closest companion. The moon's surface seemed to ripple slightly, like a reflection in disturbed water. As she watched, a dark patch appeared on its surface, spread for a few minutes, then disappeared. "How long?" she asked. "At the current rate, maybe 2 months before we lose it completely," Rob answered. Lisa's phone lit up with another message from Angela. "Found something interesting. The void zones, they react to human presence. Not just physical presence, thoughts. Emotions. Consciousness itself seems to push back against whatever this is. Come to my lab. Bringing in Dr. Clark from quantum research. Think we might have our first real lead. Looking up at the fading moon, Lisa felt a strange mix of fear and hope. The universe might be withdrawing, but humanity wasn't going down without a fight. And now, perhaps, they had found their first weapon in this cosmic war, their own consciousness. Dr. William Carter stood before the emergency meeting of world leaders, his presentation showing the latest images of the growing void zones. The United Nations Assembly Hall was packed, with representatives from every nation watching intently. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we've made a breakthrough. Thanks to the work of engineer Karen Foster and her team, we now know that human consciousness has a measurable effect on these void zones. We're not just victims in this cosmic event. We can fight back." The room erupted in whispers and murmurs. On the giant screen behind him, a video played showing a small team approaching a void zone. As they got closer, the strange darkness seemed to retreat slightly. "We call them stellar anchors," Karen Foster explained as she joined Dr. Carter at the podium. She held up what looked like a metal sphere with complex patterns etched into its surface. These devices amplify human brainwave patterns. When powered up, they create a stable bubble of normal space around them. The next video showed the device in action. When activated near a void zone, it pushed the darkness back, creating a clear sphere of normal reality about 50 feet across. "But here's the really interesting part," Karen continued. "The effect gets stronger when people nearby are feeling strong emotions. Hope, determination, even fear. They all make the anchor work better." In the back of the room, Dr. Lisa Morgan watched with growing excitement. After months of helplessly observing the universe withdraw, they finally had a way to fight back. The plan they presented was ambitious. Build thousands of stellar anchors and place them around major cities. Create a network of reality tethers to maintain humanity's connection to normal space. But most importantly, find a way to push back against the void that was eating away at their universe. 2 weeks later, Lisa stood with Karen Foster at the first major test of the Bridge Protocol. They had set up a stellar anchor in the middle of a growing void zone, just outside New York City. Around it stood a circle of volunteers, all connected to the device through special headsets. "Remember," Karen told the volunteers, "focus on positive emotions. Think about what you're fighting for. Your homes, your families, your future." The stellar anchor hummed to life. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the darkness began to retreat. The strange distortions in the air faded away, replaced by normal, clear sky. The void zone was pushed back almost 100 yards in every direction. "It's working," Karen exclaimed, checking her instruments. "The reality field is stable. We're actually pushing it back." News of the successful test spread quickly. Governments worldwide began mass-producing stellar anchors. Cities started organizing consciousness circles, groups of volunteers who would take shifts maintaining the reality fields around their communities. But it wasn't all good news. Lisa received a call from Rob at the observatory. "The moon's getting worse," he said. "The void zones up there are spreading faster than we can track them. And we're picking up strange signals from the dark patches, like echoes of things that shouldn't exist." At her lab, Angela Peters made another discovery. She found that certain types of human activity had stronger effects on the void zones. Artists creating paintings, musicians performing, writers working on their stories. All of these seemed to generate stronger reality fields than ordinary thoughts and emotions. "It's like the act of creation itself strengthens our connection to reality," she explained to Lisa. "Maybe that's why this is happening to us. Maybe we're being tested." The theory gained support when they found that places like museums, concert halls, and libraries naturally resisted the void's influence. Cities began organizing continuous art festivals and performances, not just for morale, but as another way to hold back the darkness. Lisa watched from her office as another group of volunteers took their places around a stellar anchor in the observatory's parking lot. They wore the new improved headsets that Karen had designed, which helped them focus their thoughts more effectively. As the sun set, fewer stars than ever were visible in the sky. But for the first time since this crisis began, Lisa felt real hope. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were learning to fight back. The universe might be withdrawing, but humans were proving they could create their own light in the darkness. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Carter. Emergency meeting tomorrow. We're ready to test the Prometheus protocol. Bring your team. This could be our chance to do more than just defend. We might be able to start taking back what we've lost. The last transmission from the Mars colony played on the screen in ISPI headquarters. Dr. William Carter and his team watched in silence as the video showed the void zones spreading across the red planet's surface. This is Mars Base 1. The colony leader's voice crackled through static. The void. It's different here. Bigger. Hungrier. We've lost contact with bases 2 and 3. Our stellar anchors aren't working as well as they do on Earth. We're going to try to. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. That was 3 days ago. Now the entire Mars colony was dark. Dr. Stephen Clark walked into the room, carrying his latest prototype of the reality tether. Unlike the stellar anchors, which created protected zones, reality tethers were designed to maintain connections between safe areas. We've made them stronger, he explained, setting the device on the table. By using quantum entanglement, we can link multiple anchored zones together. But we need something more powerful to reach Mars. Lisa Morgan stood at the window, looking up at the moon. Dark patches covered almost a third of its surface now, making it look like a partially erased drawing. Even the protected areas of Earth were feeling the effects. The temperature had dropped another 5 degrees worldwide, and strange shadows moved at the edges of the anchor zones. Her phone rang. It was Lieutenant Emily Brooks from the military's new Void Operations Division. Dr. Morgan, we did it. Emily's excited voice came through. We made it through a void zone and back. The consciousness-powered shields held up. Lisa sat up straighter. You actually went inside. What did you see? There was a pause. It's hard to describe, like being everywhere and nowhere at once. But we found something interesting. Human emotions don't just protect us from the void. They can actually push it back. When our team started thinking about home, about why we were there, we could make the darkness retreat. This news sparked a new series of experiments. Research teams worldwide began studying how different emotional states affected the void. They discovered that certain feelings, love, determination, hope, even righteous anger, created stronger protective fields than others. At the New York testing facility, Karen Foster worked with musicians and artists to enhance the effect. As a symphony orchestra played, the void zone boundary visibly retreated. When painters set up their easels near the edge of protected zones, their creativity seemed to strengthen the reality tethers. But the void was learning too. The dark patches began moving in new ways, probing for weaknesses in the human defenses. Some areas reported seeing strange shapes in the darkness, like something trying to look in from outside reality. We need to consolidate our resources, Dr. Carter announced at the next global conference. We can't protect everything yet. We need to create anchor cities, places where we can concentrate our reality tethers and human consciousness to maintain safe zones. The evacuation of smaller towns began. Millions of people moved to designated anchor cities, where massive stellar anchors powered by thousands of linked minds kept the void at bay. Artists, musicians, and other creatives were given special quarters near the anchor points, their work helping to strengthen the reality fields. Lisa worked with Rob to monitor the void's advance from their new observatory in the Denver anchor city. The stars were almost all gone now, with only the brightest still visible through the darkness. But they had made an interesting discovery. The few stars they could still see appeared brighter within the anchor zones. It's like we're creating our own pocket of reality, Rob said, reviewing the data. The void can't get in, and what's left of normal space is actually getting stronger inside our protected areas. During a test of the enhanced reality tethers, Dr. Clark made an unexpected discovery. When connected to multiple human minds, the devices began generating their own light, not reflected or borrowed, but actually created from human consciousness itself. We're not just maintaining reality anymore, he explained to Lisa. We're learning to shape it, to create it. That evening, as Lisa watched the golden dome of energy that protected Denver, she saw something that gave her hope. Where the void pressed against the shield, little sparks of light appeared, like stars being born from human willpower alone. Her tablet chimed with a message from Dr. Carter. New data from Angela's team. The Prometheus protocol is ready for full testing. We're not just going to hold the line anymore. It's time to take back what the void stole from us. The last of Earth's unprotected cities fell dark on a Tuesday. From her position in the Denver Anchor City's central tower, Lisa Morgan watched the void swallow Chicago's distant lights. The city's stellar anchors had finally run out of power, their human operators too exhausted to maintain the field any longer. That's it, Rob said quietly beside her. There are only 12 anchor cities left. The world had changed dramatically in the past week. Solar radiation had dropped to dangerous levels, forcing humanity to gather in the remaining protected zones. Each anchor city now held millions of people, their combined consciousness barely keeping the void at bay. Dr. Carter's voice came over the emergency broadcast system. Attention all citizens. The Prometheus protocol test begins in 1 hour. All residents please report to your assigned consciousness amplification stations. Lisa hurried to the main control room, where Dr. Rachel Martinez was making final adjustments to the new system. The Prometheus protocol was humanity's most ambitious project yet, an attempt to link the minds of everyone in all 12 remaining cities into a single, powerful network. The theory is solid, Rachel explained, pointing to her calculations. We've proven that human consciousness can create reality ripples, if we can combine enough minds at once. She was interrupted by alarms. The void had found a weak spot in London's shields. On the main screen, they watched as darkness seeped through a crack in the golden dome protecting the city. But something unexpected happened. As the void pushed in, the people of London pushed back, not with technology, but with pure human will. Thousands of voices began singing, an impromptu choir facing the darkness with music. The crack in the shield sealed itself, glowing brighter than before. That's it, Rachel exclaimed. That's what we've been missing. It's not just consciousness, it's unity, purpose. When people work together, the effect multiplies. The next hour was a blur of activity. In all 12 cities, millions of people took their places at consciousness amplification stations. Artists set up their easels, musicians readied their instruments, and writers opened their notebooks. Everyone had a part to play. Lisa stood with Rob at their assigned station, holding hands with the others in their circle. The stellar anchor in the center hummed with power. Prometheus protocol initiating in 3, 2, 1. Dr. Carter's voice counted down. The moment it activated, Lisa felt it. It was like being connected to millions of minds at once, but not in an overwhelming way. She could feel humanity's collective will focusing through the network of reality tethers and stellar anchors. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The void pressed against the city's shields as it always had. But then, slowly, something changed. The darkness began to retreat, not just from one spot, but everywhere at once. It's working. Rachel's voice came over the speakers. The void is pulling back. Everyone, focus harder. Lisa could feel the combined emotions of millions, their hopes, their fears, their determination to survive. Artists painted scenes of stars returning to the sky, their creations somehow strengthening the effect. Musicians played triumphant songs that made the reality fields pulse with power. But the void fought back. Dark tendrils whipped against the shields, trying to find weaknesses. Strange sounds echoed through the protected zones, impossible noises that hurt to hear. Hold on, Dr. Carter commanded. "We're reaching critical mass." The pressure built until Lisa thought she would break. Then, suddenly, everything changed. The reality fields around the cities flared with blinding light. Where there had been darkness, new stars began to appear, not the old stars returning, but new ones created by human consciousness itself. "We've done it," Rachel whispered in awe. "We're not just pushing the void back, we're learning to create reality ourselves." The void retreated further, leaving a strange mix of natural and human-created space behind. The temperature began to rise as their new stars provided warmth and light. Later that night, as the emergency celebrations continued around her, Lisa received a message from Captain Wright of the Navy. "Signal detected from Mars colony. Weak but growing stronger. They're still there, still fighting. Now that we know how to push back, we can reach them." Lisa looked up at the new constellations shining above Denver, patterns created by human will and determination. The void had tried to unmake their reality, but humanity had learned to make its own instead. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Carter. "This is just the beginning. Meet me in Lab 7. We need to start planning the Mars rescue mission. It's time to take back our solar system." The rescue fleet hung in Earth orbit, 12 ships powered by the largest stellar anchors ever built. Lieutenant Emily Brooks stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching Earth's new constellations shine below. After the success of the Prometheus Protocol, humanity had learned to create not just protective bubbles, but actual stable space. Dr. Rachel Martinez's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Final check on the consciousness engines. Everyone to your stations." The consciousness engines were her latest invention, massive devices that could store and amplify human emotional energy. Each ship carried one, powered by the combined will of its crew and linked to the growing network of human-made stars. "Fleet status report," Captain Brian Foster commanded from the main control room. "Reality field stable," Emily reported. "All ships showing green on their tethers." In Denver Anchor City, Lisa Morgan and Rod watched from the control center as the fleet prepared for humanity's first major push into void-taken space. The Mars rescue mission was about to begin. "Remember," Dr. Carter's voice addressed the fleet, "we're not just pushing through the void. We're creating a permanent path. Every ship needs to maintain its section of the reality corridor." The launch countdown began. On each ship, crews gathered around their stellar anchors, their minds linking through the new consciousness network. Artists, musicians, and writers were spaced throughout the fleet, their creativity helping to strengthen the reality fields. As the ships moved out of Earth orbit, they arranged themselves in a circle. Energy beams connected them, forming a tube of stable space, a human-made corridor through the void. "First void boundary in 3 minutes," Captain Foster announced. "All consciousness engines to full power." Emily felt it when they hit the void. The darkness pressed against their shields, trying to unmake reality around them. But this time, humanity was ready. "Everyone focus," Rachel commanded. "Remember why we're here. Think about Mars, about the colonists waiting for rescue." The corridor held. More than that, it began to expand. Where the reality field touched the void, new space formed. Not just empty space, but space filled with human-created stars, each one born from the combined will and emotion of the fleet's crews. "We're getting a signal," Rob's excited voice came from Earth. "The corridor is working like a waveguide. We're picking up Mars colony's beacon." The fleet pushed onward, leaving a trail of stable space behind them. Each ship's consciousness engine worked at full power, their human crews pouring their hope and determination into the devices. At her station, Emily noticed something strange. The void wasn't just retreating, it was changing. Wherever human consciousness touched it, the darkness seemed to crystallize, transforming into something new. "Dr. Martinez," she called, "are you seeing this?" Rachel's voice was filled with excitement. "Yes. The void isn't just empty space, it's raw potential, and we're learning to shape it." Hour by hour, The fleet drove deeper into what had once been empty darkness. The corridor of human-made space grew steadily, filled with new stars that pulsed in time with the thoughts and emotions of their creators. Back on Earth, Lisa and the science team made an incredible discovery. The human-created stars weren't just providing light and heat, they were actually strengthening reality itself. Each one acted like a tiny anchor, helping to hold space stable against the void's influence. "It's like we're rebuilding the universe," Rob said in awe, watching the new constellations spread across their screens. "But this time, we're part of its foundation." The fleet was halfway to Mars when they made first contact with the colonists. The void's retreat had revealed 3 of the 7 colony domes, their own stellar anchors still functioning on emergency power. "Mars Colony 1 to rescue fleet," a tired but happy voice transmitted. "We knew you'd come. We've been watching your new stars appear, getting closer each day." Captain Foster smiled. "Rescue fleet to Mars Colony 1. Get ready for pickup. We're bringing you home. And this time, we're building a permanent path through the void." Emily looked out at the starfield they'd created, patterns of light born from human consciousness and will. The void had tried to unmake their reality, but humanity had learned to make something better instead. Her console chimed with a message from Rachel. "New readings from the outer system. The void's retreat is accelerating. Whatever we've started, it's spreading. Humanity's fire is rekindling the stars." 1 year after the first successful Mars rescue mission, Lisa Morgan stood in the new Global Reality Control Center, watching humanity's growing network of stars spread across the giant display screen. What had started as a desperate defense against the void had become something far more profound. "Neural link testing complete," Dr. Rachel Martinez announced, adjusting controls on the massive consciousness network hub. "All anchor cities are connected and stable." The consciousness network now linked every major city on Earth, allowing millions of minds to work together in maintaining and expanding human-created space. The void still existed at the edges of their influence, but it no longer threatened. Instead, it seemed to wait, as if watching. Captain Brian Foster's voice came through the comm system. "Deep Space Fleet reporting in. We've reached the Jupiter reconstruction zone." On the main screen, they could see the fleet's progress. Where Jupiter had once been swallowed by the void, humans were now rebuilding the space around it, creating new stability anchors and stellar networks. The gas giant was slowly becoming visible again, though changed by its time in the darkness. "Something's different about the recovered planets," Rob said, studying the data. "They're not exactly like they were before. It's as if they've been transformed by human consciousness too." He was right. Everything they recovered from the void came back altered, carrying traces of the human will that had rescued it. The new stars they created didn't just shine, they resonated with human emotion and creativity. Dr. William Carter walked into the control room, followed by a group of children from the new Reality Shaping Academy. These kids had grown up during the crisis, and many showed extraordinary abilities to influence and create space. "Watch this," Carter said proudly. The children gathered around a small stellar anchor, joining hands. As they concentrated, a new constellation formed in the sky above the city, stars arranged in the shape of a smiling face. "They're getting better at it every day," he explained. "This new generation doesn't just understand the technology, they're developing a natural ability to shape reality." Suddenly, alarms began ringing. But these weren't the danger alarms they'd grown used to during the crisis. These were different. "We're picking up something from the void," Rachel called out. It's a pattern. A message." The message appeared on their screens, not in words, but in pulses of reality and unreality that their computers translated. "UAVPASSEDDA test." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. "Test? What test?" As if in response, more patterns emerged. "The universe is guardians, those who can create and maintain reality. UAV prove worthy." The void at the edge of human space began to change, crystallizing into something new. It wasn't retreating anymore. It was transforming, becoming a boundary between what was and what could be. "I understand now," Rachel said softly. The void wasn't trying to destroy us. It was pushing us to evolve, to become something more. Over the next few hours, more messages came. They learned that the universe periodically tested species, withdrawing itself to see if they could maintain and create reality on their own. Many had failed, letting their worlds fall into darkness. Humanity had not only survived, they had learned to create new stars, new space, new reality itself. 6 months later, Lisa stood on the observation deck of Titan Base, watching Saturn's rings glitter with a mix of natural and human-made light. The void remained at the edges of their influence, but now they understood its purpose. It wasn't an enemy, but a forge, challenging them to become stronger, more creative, more united. The reality shaping the academy had branches on every continent now, teaching new generations how to use their consciousness to maintain and expand human space. Artists, musicians, and dreamers worked alongside scientists and engineers, their creativity helping to shape the new reality they were building. Dr. Carter's voice came over the station speakers. "Attention all personnel. The first deep void expedition leaves in 1 hour. Now that we understand what we're dealing with, it's time to explore what lies beyond our restored space." Lisa smiled, touching the reality tether at her belt. They had not only survived the universe's withdrawal, they had evolved beyond it. Humanity's fire hadn't just shattered the void, it had transformed it into something new. Her tablet lit up with a final message from Rachel. New signals detected from other galaxies. More tests beginning. They're asking us to help guide the other species who are facing their own voids. Ready to help teach some aliens how to make stars.